In South Africa, it appears that no place is immune from criminal activity. Recently, at a church service in Durban, armed criminals robbed a preacher and his followers. This is only one of several instances of this kind that have happened across the country. Schools, hospitals and churches have become easy targets for criminals. Our reporter Dasen Thathiah is tracking the story for us, and he joins us now live to give us more. Dasen, you're with police once again today in the KZN province. What are they saying about the issue that I discussed in the introduction to our crossing?
Earlier this morning, Maseko, we went back to that church that was affected by that robbery just a few months ago, and we were just finding out what it is that they had done. And one of the things that they had to do since then was improve the security. They've also temporarily suspended those evening services just for safety reasons until they get their security up to scratch. But these are really the repercussions and the impact that you have after these types of crimes take place. People now have to find the budget to improve their security at not just their homes, but in these places like places of worship, for example, just to ensure that they don't have a repeat of those incidents. But the big question normally is, what are police doing about it, and how are they assisting these communities feel safe in all of these places? And we're not just talking about places of worship, but also other places like clinics and hospitals and schools, for example. So I want to bring in now Brigadier J. Naika with the SAPS. Brigadier, we are approaching a very busy period now, but it's not just now that we're seeing this. We have seen instances in the past where places that you would not normally suspect criminals to operate in are now becoming targets for them as well. So what exactly are the police able to do when we talk about places of worship, we talk about schools? What is your role in keeping those people that attend these places safe?
Specifically with the places of worship, we noticed the trend as it goes years back prior to COVID-19. Initially, it started with break-ins because there's no security in those places. So they would break in and steal valuable items from places of worship, which would be stolen, mostly metal stuff that was sold as scrap. And then it started with the robberies on worshippers, because they realize there's no security there. People are in these places of worship totally unaware of what's going on around them. So via the CPFs, we have been engaging with forums with the places of worship to say, how can they improve the security, even if it's just community members that can keep an eye whilst people are at these places of worship. Also to inform us when they of the times of the prayer sessions or whatever events they have at these places of worship, so that we can just ensure that we have patrols in that area, because we can't always be static, because whilst we are looking at places of worship, there's business premises, there's even communities that are also susceptible to becoming victims of crimes. So that engagement has been taking place, and we notice even now that some of the places of worship have employed security companies to guard them, whilst others have members of their congregation that perform security duties.
Brigadier, there's also the issue of schools. We often find that when schools return, or when pupils return to classrooms in January, that there are break-ins and valuable equipment is being stolen. All of this impacts education as well, and especially when we know, for example, that these places will be vacant during that time. Are police actively aware of that and then trying to assist in that regard to ensure that proactively these incidents don't take place?
Yeah, as I say, it's very difficult because we've made no bones about it. We will never have the amount of police officers to be static at all of these points. We can only assist by conducting patrols in those areas when we're not attending other complaints also. But the education department has stepped up, and security is at most of these schools. The challenge I think we have now is that they're being held up also and targeted, and that is disturbing, because these schools are serving a community, and we wouldn't expect that this very same community members from the very same community are now robbing these schools. But there is that ongoing engagement with the Department of Education in terms of school security. And we've seen even now with the security guards, even during school hours, that criminals are attempting to get into schools, and there have been incidents also of where teachers were held up at schools.
Brigadier, lastly, one of your other roles as the police, especially when we're talking about these crimes, I mean, these are very localized crimes that we're talking about. And one of the other roles that you have is to build a relationship with communities. And that doesn't always necessarily work out. You know, some people have a certain perception of the police when it comes to corruption or laziness or whatever it is that they may feel from their personal experience. We saw it most recently where a criminal was hiding out at a house in Inanda after that shootout. So what are you doing to build that relationship, to improve that? Because I imagine that would go a long way towards assisting you with the type of information you need to deal with these crimes.
Absolutely. We always say that community police forums are the way to go. And we have good relationships with members of the community police forums. Unfortunately, some people will not want to give up their time to be part of community police forums. But we're also encouraging them just to join the neighborhood WhatsApp groups, because technology has made it so easy. If you are aware of the type of crimes that are occurring in your areas, what times they occur, the modus operandi of criminals, then you can be proactive even as a citizen, and to avoid becoming victims of crime. As I indicated, you know, even communities we still see the old issue of people sitting in their cars at night talking to their friends, girlfriends or boyfriends, for example, and they're getting held up. People getting robbed in the house because they leave their doors open. There is still a challenge with when community members, when they have people working at the house, contractors, or that are doing work in their house, they leave their gates open and their doors open. And it's so easy to get robbed in that way. If you're aware of those type of crimes taking place in your neighborhood and the modus operandi, you'll be more proactive, and in that way you won't become a victim of crime.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Brigadier eNCA there from the SAPS. And I think, Maseko, that really just touches on an important point, that the reality is that there will really never be enough police to cover all of these areas, and that's where things like crime intelligence comes into play. That's where community participation comes in as well. And I think that's one of the takeaways there, that there obviously needs to be a certain degree of participation from communities, especially in keeping their eyes and ears open as well.
Right. Dasen Thathiah, our senior reporter, live for us in Durban.